Today's title is appropriately called Happiness Is, to be delivered by Jan Musarra. Jan Musarra, aka Colner, has been an official UUer here in Cambria for 10 years. Jan is a singer, songwriter, musical director, author, teacher, wife, friend, mom, and grandmother. All are important to her, but the most important at the moment is being Nana. I give you Jan.
Thank you, Amy. And thank you, River. That was beautiful. Chloe was supposed to be with us, but she couldn't make it, but that's her artwork. So I thought that was appropriate for today's slide. Can I turn this light on? Okay. Ben, can you sit down, honey, please? Thank you. When asked what one wants most out of life, does anyone ever say, I really want to be miserable? Some might say, I want to be rich, I want a family, I want to travel, I want to be beautiful, handsome. Most of the time, after one or more of these proclamations, a person inevitably says, I want to be happy. It seems to be a universal aspiration, this desire to be happy, but we need to define our terms. What exactly is happy? Naming emotions is difficult. One source maintains that the number of emotions could be deemed endless, since the etymology for words describing how one feels is endless. However, for the purpose of this talk, I will call on 7 basic and recognizable emotions: anger, contempt, disgust, enjoyment, fear, sadness, surprise. Of these 7, only one is really a positive emotion. What does that tell us? The happy factor is embedded somewhere under the enjoyment category. Lori Gardner, a well-respected life coach, author, teacher, spoke to us recently on this topic. The title of her talk was How to Be Happy When Life is Crappy. That's a great, great title. She gave us 4 guidelines for how not to be happy. First one, don't have too high of an expectation. Let go of control and open it to the universe. 2, don't try too hard. She called it desperation energy. This is emotionally and physically exhausting. She says there's a time to push and time to step back because it's hard to accept a gift if your fists are clenched. Don't compare yourself to others. One way to do that would be to stay off Facebook, because it seems like everyone else is having a great life, but we really don't know how those others are. Don't identify your happiness by trying to heal or fix others. For instance, don't do your kids' homework just to help out. The positive advice she gave was to rise when a pervasive sadness envelops you. Her instructions for how to do that were not clear. I reached out to her after the service and on email asking for clarity. She responded, intellectually rise, that is, seek and welcome other perspectives and views besides the one you're in. Emotionally rise, above your reactive emotions, to your deeper knowing and inner wisdom instead. Physically rise, above your body's exhaustion and pain. Spiritually rise, to your truest, best, or highest self that always operates from a place of love. I have 2 questions I'd like you to consider. The first one only you can answer, and that is, what or where is your happy place? Think about it. More on that later. We can try to determine the answer to the second question through epistemology. That's the theory of knowledge, which requires the presence of agreed upon landmarks and sources of common knowledge, something we seem to be missing in today's universe. And the second question is, how does this happiness factor or lack thereof reflect itself in the world and its inhabitants? Matthew Ricard is a Buddhist monk with a PhD in molecular genetics. He prefers the monk's life as opposed to the scientific one. Still, he allowed himself to be tested by a University of Wisconsin lab study, which discovered his brain produced pronounced levels of gamma waves, which are linked to learning, attention, and memory. They proclaimed him the world's happiest man. He proclaimed the title Balderdash. In an interview with the New York Times, he listed his 7 rules for a happy life. And as per a conversation with the Dalai Lama, the first one, he was the French translator for 6 years for the Dalai Lama. He said the number 1 rule given to him was to meditate. The Dalai Lama said, in the beginning, meditate on compassion. In the middle, meditate on compassion. In the end, meditate on compassion. End quote. The message is clear. And his second rule, amazingly so, is be compassionate. 3, when faced with sadness, channel that sadness into compassion, because sadness kindles compassion. As I like to tell my students, this is me, Jan, not Matthew talking, when they tell me they're nervous before a performance, I say, channel it into excitement, right? It's much more manageable. Ricard believes when you channel sadness into compassion and temper it with meditation, one has a sense of depth. Goodness knows we have enough to be sad about nowadays. So many terrible things happen around the world all the time, and the big problem is we hear about all of it. There don't seem to be any filters. Happiness does not mean you run around jumping for joy. It's more like a baseline. It's where you land after the ups and downs, after the joys and sorrows. 4, we must recognize that emotions change. With mindfulness, we learn to recognize them and when and where they're going to change so we can channel them properly. This is me again. Back to Lori Gardner and her talk. She asked us to think about a moment in our lives when we genuinely felt happy. A couple of us shared our thoughts afterwards. Both Andy and I felt it was with the birth of a child. I remember distinctly saying to Michael, my husband, after our son John was born, do you think we can keep it like this feeling? Can we make it last? We couldn't, unfortunately. But I was on to something and didn't even know it. I didn't know that I would read about this Buddhist monk 38 years later who propounded the same idea. He, Ricard, says, try to extend moments of unconditional love. Capture it, hold it, cultivate it. Try to be quiet with it for 10 minutes. And when it goes away, try to bring it back again. This is me again. I didn't know that was a thing. I was absolutely ignorant about that kind of power I and all of us might possess. Sometimes it feels like we're all driving around bumper cars. Let's try this. Shh, crash. No, that didn't work. Let me try it this way. Pff, no, maybe not. Sometimes you just want to get off the ride. I've negotiated my life with a series of ideas or life philosophies. One is listen to the universe, a concept I still use. When faced with a tough decision of what feels like insurmountable problems, that is my go-to phrase. And you can't listen to the universe very effectively when you're running around with your hair on fire. It requires a quiet internal place. So you find that place and listen. I'm reading, or maybe rereading, Winter of Our Discontent by John Steinbeck. The protagonist's happy place is an abandoned bunker-type storm drain accessible only from the ocean side. He calls it the place, a spot in which to wonder about things. A secret place, he says, where soul shivers can abate, where one can take stock of it. Some others might call it prayer, and maybe it would be the same thing. He continues, if I wanted to make a picture of it for myself, it would be a wet sheet, turning and flapping in a lovely wind and drying and sweetening the white. Steinbeck's beautiful words. His place is where he listens to the universe. And while it probably is not the universe at all speaking, when we go to that place, our place, we're able to hear something. Call it what you will. your own mind guiding yourself, our ancestors embedded in our DNA, which is epigenetics, God even, the angels. We draw upon a wealth of resources we might never be able to name. I extrapolate all this information from Ricard's rule number 5 again. Try to extend the moments of unconditional love. Capture it, hold it, cultivate it, try to be quiet with it for 10 minutes. And when it goes away, try to bring it back. I'm going to skip to number 7 here because I want to save number 6. Number 7 is walk in nature. I don't think there is anyone here in Cambria who does not understand the benefits of walking in this environment. The sense of wonder and awe, joy and mystery. After my walk on the Fiscalini Ranch a few weeks ago, I listed the creatures I encountered. 1 resting great blue heron, 10 hungry turkey vultures, 6 soaring pelicans, 7 seagulls in pursuit, 8 ground squirrels, 1 gecko, which is really a lizard, 9 hauled up seals, and 3 snowy egrets, and a partridge in a pear tree. And a few days ago, we had an earthquake in the morning and a double rainbow in the evening. I took that picture from my deck. Everyone on the street, it was like a science fiction movie. Look, up in the sky, it's Superman, it's a bird, it's a whatever. Then in mid-September, we had a bird invasion. I took this picture, not that one, the next picture of the pelicans. It was a pelican party. Never seen anything like that. There were thousands. If you didn't see it, if you weren't here, it was thousands. And the next one was a picture of a turkey vulture surveying his prospects. How often do you see that? But not on that top of that. It was just like remarkable. In the evening, I was treated with this sunset. That's also from my deck. So I had the rainbows over here and the sunset over here. It was most remarkable. And does all of this make me happy? You bet it does. And every time I look at the pictures or remember them in my mind, I'm happy all over again. A good reason for our pictures. Now, number 6, I've been saving it so it can be savored. The 6th rule from the Dalai, not from the Dalai, yes, from the Dalai. Want happiness for others. That will enhance your own happiness. Number 6 is the key, I believe, to this whole philosophy, the spiritual component, the raison d'être. If you want happiness for others, you're an empath. You are more likely to be selfless. The world is more likely to be a better place for your existence. I'd like to read an abstract, which can be a little boring, but I'll try not to make it too boring, published in the National Library of Medicine in February 2021. The author is psychologist Michael Dambrun. He says, the main objective of this research was to test the central assumptions from the self-centeredness, selfless happiness model. According to this model, while self-centered psychological functioning induces fluctuating happiness, authentic, durable happiness results from selflessness. Distinct mediating processes are supposed to account for these relationships, afflictive effects like anger, fear, jealousy, frustration, in the case of the former, and both emotional stability and feelings of harmony in the case of the latter. We tested these hypotheses in 2 studies based on heterogeneous samples of citizens. They used 547 people. Factor analyses revealed that self-centeredness, assessed through egocentrism and materialism, and selflessness, assessed through self-transcendence and connectedness to others, were 2 distinct psychological constructs. Second, while self-centeredness was positively and significantly related to fluctuating happiness, selflessness was positively and significantly related to authentic, durable happiness. Finally, distinct psychological processes mediated these relationships. On one hand, the relationship between self-centeredness and fluctuating happiness was fully mediated by afflictive effects. On the other hand, emotional stability and the feeling of being in harmony partially mediated the relation between selflessness and authentic, durable happiness. So, what conclusion can we draw from this abstract without reading the complete study, which was like 100 pages? I wasn't about to read that. My conclusion is, if we're to achieve sustainable happiness, we must learn to be selfless, along the lines of, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Do you know who said that? Yes, John F. Kennedy. You'll learn later. We can substitute a dozen different words and still achieve the same result. Ask not what your family, your city, your church, your club, your school, your world can do for you, and instead what you can do. As a member of the worship committee, I am cognizant of the importance of a spiritual message or quality of our services. We don't want to be preached to or sermonized or proselytized. So my question might be, who cares? You're not happy, not my problem. And the larger question, what does it matter in the larger scheme of things? Is the world a better place if we're happy? Let me go back to Michael Dambrun's abstract. Authentic, durable happiness results from selflessness. I give you a syllogism. Selfless people are happy. You are not selfless. Therefore, you are not happy. That's an incorrect syllogism. To be correct, it would have to read, only selfless people are happy. I don't have the research to back that up, but I'll go with this incomplete or mostly correct syllogism. The conclusion would be, if you are selfless, you have a better chance of being happy than if you are self-centered. And as a bonus, selflessness radiates outward. It's like that PSA on television where one person does a good deed and what follows is a chain reaction of good deeds. I love that commercial. Another takeaway would be sadness breeds compassion. It's impossible to process all the sadness we hear about every day. The war in Ukraine and now the Israeli conflict, the fire in Maui, the immigrants seeking a better life, childhood hunger and poverty, homelessness, on and on and on. Pick one cause closest to your heart. I know Marianne has picked Maui. Pledge to work on that front for good. Show compassion in your own special way. Write letters, gather clothing with Kat, man a food bank, become a big brother or sister. Want happiness for others, no matter how hard it is sometimes. See if it changes you. Let's conclude by going back to our happy places. I believe mine is sitting at my piano, whether I'm writing a song, arranging music, learning a new piece, singing, or practicing. This is my place, and I've tried to share my music and my grandchildren with the world. Similar to my happy place, one of my sons sees his in the faces and words of people who enjoy his music. My niece in Cleveland, who I think is with us today, owns a shop called Pop Culture Clee. She creates and sells all kinds of popsicles. Her happy place is her industrial kitchen, where she's a creator of all good things. She shared a picture on Facebook the other day of her opening her closed shop to a mother and her Down syndrome daughter. My niece spent an hour with this little girl, teaching her to make ice cream. She also sells t-shirts designed by one of her customers. That's Cole, an 11-year-old boy who died recently from a rare form of blood cancer. He designed that popsicle t-shirt, which are for sale for $30 each. The money goes to childhood cancer research. The path to happiness is not having all the money in the world, or the nicest clothes, or even the best job. The road to happiness appears to be selflessness and compassion. And that's something we all have the potential to achieve. This has just been a friendly reminder. Thank you.